Welcome back to Beer with Nat. Today's guest is Jan Rogers, owner and director of Marble Brewery in Manchester. In 1990, Jan turned up for a drink at the Marble Arch pub and, in her words, didn't go home. She began working at the pub, and when it was facing uncertainty in the late 90s, Jan was adamant that karaoke wasn't the fix. Instead, the decision was made to install a small brew kit in the pub, and that's how Marble Brewery began back in 1997. From Marble's early days, I asked Jan to reflect on how both the business and the beer industry have changed over the last 20 years. Yes, it was a big ask, but Jan's got some great stories and incredible insight to share. We talk about why she sees the brewery's small size as an asset and how it's allowed her to create a sense of community, not only within the business, but across the Manchester and broader UK beer scene as well. Jan tells me what aspects of her job she enjoys best, what she's most proud of, and what her vision is for Marble's future. Before I turn it over to our conversation, I just wanted to add in a mention of how Jan and I met. Back in November, I headed up to Manchester to record my first ever live episode of Beer with Nat at the Ladies' Big Beery Meetup, a meetup of beer-loving ladies from across the country, hosted by the Ladies That Beer and Crafty Beer Girls. You'll hear that one on my next episode. Jan not only hosted us at one of Marble Brewery's venues, 57 Thomas Street, she also agreed to get there early to meet me for a beer and a chat before the event kicked off so I could squeeze in another recording while in town. Thanks again, Jan. Although we'd not met before, I heard Jan's Northern Irish accent and instantly felt right at home. Yes, I sound very American by now, but both of my parents are Northern Irish, and I actually lived there for a few years as a kid. It felt like Jan and I had an immediate connection, and I couldn't wait to sit down and chat and get to know her better. So, here she is. What have we got in front of us?
We have got pint in front of us.
Thank you. Or is that really what it's called?
Okay, we're having it out of a can. We're sharing a can, so it's called metric.
Yep.
And that's due to a trading standard story, which is too old to go back into.
Yeah, go
now.
Google it if you want to read more about it. Jan's got plenty of other fun things to say today.
The reason we're drinking is 3.9. It's 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and we have a big day and a big event to get through.
Yes.
So we're keeping it safe for now.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So you are the owner and director of Marble Brewery.
I am, yes.
And you helped to found the brewery in 1997. So
Yes.
you've got some staying power since 1997 to still be around. So 20 years ago when you first got started, is this the future you envisioned for yourself and for the business?
I don't think I envisaged a future. I think everything came from trying to safeguard the pub called the Marble Arch. So the pub itself was in what was a very rundown area that it now is being revitalised and built in and stuff. It was the big part of the recession we went through with the Marble. We couldn't afford to do works on it and stuff. The brewery was I know I tell the story that I worked with a couple of other people, and they had to convince me that putting a brewery in was good. And we were one of the few free houses in Manchester. So we were doing Tony Allen's beers, from Oak Brewery, we were doing Brent and Dobbin's beers and stuff. And they gave me a choice because they knew I hated karaoke and said, Jan, we're going to have to go down that sort of way, or we're going to put a little brewery in and make our own beer. And it'll be a talking point for the pub. And that's where it started, but that's where it all came from. The brewery plant was 4.5 barrels, sourced through Brent and Dobbin. I think he had built it originally. It was second hand, and I think this is funny with all the millions being spent on breweries now. It cost us £25,000.
Wow.
And we paid it off in instalments to Brendan because we didn't have the money up front
At the time, yeah.
and it made good beer. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Look at what you've created. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So how early on were you involved with the Marble Arch?
I turned up for a drink in the Marble Arch in 1990 and didn't go home.
Oh my goodness.
So
have you been working there, working your way
Yeah.
up to managing it, and then it came to, we've got to make a decision. How do we keep
Yeah,
this
it
place
became
alive?
a family thing. I got involved with Vance, and he owned the pub, and yes, just years after trading, we were up to 5 pubs at one stage plus the brewery. There were 3 partners as well at one stage, and then things disappeared off, family life changes and stuff. So
Yep.
yeah.
So now it's all in your hands.
Well, the Marble Arch and here 57 Thomas Street are in my hands. We've just sold the beer house in Charlton in order to help finance a new brewery kit and a new premises for the brewery.
Yep.
But the Knot and what was formerly the bar in Charlton are still with Vance. John Henley still has Fringe Bar in Manchester. So
How did you discover your love of beer? You said you turned up for a pint.
I turned up for a pint
ago.
at the Arch in 1990. When I came here as a student, again, weird story. My first ever pint of beer was John Willie Lee's Bitter
Okay.
in the church, I think it's called the church anyway. behind Cavendish House at the old Manchester Polytechnic.
Okay.
And basically, we were talking about being from Ireland.
Yep.
So there was the church on one corner and
pub on the
Klein's
other.
wine bar on the other corner.
Yep.
Klein's was a very nationalistic Irish music sort of place and all. But there was a little night watchman that came from Northern Ireland
Okay.
that drank in the church, and he made friends with me because of accent, and that was my first pint of bitter.
Yep, that's what I said to Jan when I first met her earlier today. I was like, "You're from Northern Ireland. I know that accent." So right away, we know we've got a shared connection.
No, so it was a very personal thing that I found this small, old-time pub with people who were totally friendly. Like, I was a student, middle-class student going into this pub.
Yeah, in a new world, coming over from
yeah.
Northern Ireland.
They looked after me and took care of me. So this man in his 70s that was a night watchman over the road. Sort of
Yeah.
thing. My second pint of John Willie Lee's had blackcurrant in it.
Oh,
And then I
dear.
had to be weaned back again to just drinking bitter.
Yeah.
So it came as a bit of a shock after drinking, lager and black and things. But
Yeah.
I did stick with it, and I found the drink and the people involved so refreshing, so different from the normal stuff.
Yeah. And what did you come over here to go to school for? And then what made you decide to go down this route instead?
I came over to do hotel and catering.
Oh, okay.
I lasted a year.
Okay.
And ended up doing social sciences and criminology. So
Oh, wow,
it
that's
was a total
fascinating.
shift if you're going to
Yeah.
be, yeah.
And do you find yourself using any of that today, or does that influence any of your hobbies outside of beer?
I have no idea is the God's honest truth on that one. I'm sure it all filters through as experience, doesn't it? I know that I have a more sociological and political feel for the industry than a lot of people would be comfortable with. So I do know that it's important to me how the industry's seen and how people act in it and stuff. Maybe that's a bit of that
Yeah.
previous sort of
Background coming
Background,
through.
yeah.
That was a big reason for me wanting to start the podcast is everyone who's come to beer has
Yeah.
come at it from something different.
Yeah.
My background's in microbiology, but I thought I was going to go pursue, I got my master's in public
Yeah.
health thinking I would help prevent the
Yeah.
spread of infectious disease. And here I am using that micro degree to talk about yeast
beer.
and beer.
Yeah.
So it's all come back around,
Yeah.
but it makes the industry all the richer for
I think
all the
so,
different
yeah.
background experiences and the different ways that we think when coming into this industry. So when you got started at the pub, did you ever think that you were going to be opening a brewery and owning your own business many years later?
No, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And again, I'm qualified to teach, so I have a long and varied career. But I taught FE for a long time and loved it because the students were there and they wanted to learn. It was good.
Mm-hmm.
I did one teaching practice in a secondary school with 13-year-old girls.
Well, that sounds
And
tough. That sounds really tough.
I was like, I'm never going into school teaching. And then by the time I have two children, by the time I had Dan, we were in a place where we wanted to open another business in Chorlton to get the kids back to Chorlton from North Manchester. And we opened a bottle shop there and lived above it. And again, the best career in the world. Like, we had this little bottle shop, we had a little house above it, the Marble Arch, and customers would come in and we'd just be like, we haven't opened that yet, come on, do you want to try it? It was so much fun, it was riotous, so it was.
You're just
So-
really connected with your customers and they're going through the experience with
and
you.
with the beers, and it was learning about Belgium and German beers. So it was such a different market from now. So those old classics like Orville and Duval and Chimney and stuff were just new coming into this country.
Yep.
So it was a big thing in Schneider Weiss and Augustina and stuff. And you'd have people turn up and say, I hear you've got this.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, yeah, come on, we'll open a bottle and try it. And yeah.
Oh, that's so fun.
And then in Chorlton, it was too far to drink at the Arch and we had the kids and stuff. So, and I was a bit snotty about maybe other places there. So I was like pestered the people I was working with and like, let's open another bar. So we opened a bar called The Bar in
easy.
Chorlton.
Okay.
A little one unit. That ended up being a bit Amsterdam brown bar-y feel. It was rough and ready. And it was really good fun as well. It filled out because there was nothing else like it, and it was comfortable and laid back.
And did those different beer experiences influence what you were brewing at Marble Brewery at the time, or were you committed to brewing English styles because you knew you could bring in interesting Belgian and German styles?
My memory is very traditional English styles, and I think for the first couple of years with that was very much. So when we brewed with Mark and he was head brewer, we were finding our feet and making good beers, but you make good beers off that style that you're used to. And then when James and Dominic and Colin came along, it started to go out a little bit, but I would say it's only from JK and Joe coming in that we've really started to branch out into a more modern taste,
Brewing style.
flavouring, brewing style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can, I know it's a lot of years to go over in a short amount of time, but can you take me through sort of what's happened in the last 20 years as a business? As a little
here?
skim. Yes?
Well, of Marble or of beer outside Marble?
For Marble. Yeah.
For Marble, it's all small scale. It's personal to me. I find it difficult to do. So I know I've gone up to, say, 25 staff twice and gone over that and then brought it back down again, not been able to cope in the business. Now we're bigger, but we have a bigger head office team, so we've about 45 people now.
Wow.
But we've a bigger head office team to know them and get on with them and stuff. I didn't like walking into pubs, for instance, where I didn't know people behind the bar and stuff. So I think that has changed, that I've become more comfortable with working with more people. We've definitely become more formal. If I go back all those years ago, like, we nearly sent the Marble under once just through partying, you know, we just partied and there was no money.
Yeah.
And then we had to be really sensible and pull it back. And that's one of the other things I've learned. For me, there's no point doing it if there's no fun. It's not just a business. But you have to make money in order to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So at the moment for this new brewery, it's going to be the biggest thing we've ever done. And we are ripping through the company and saying, you've got to save money on this. We can't afford to do that at the moment. And that's all for a good cause, because maybe in 12 months' time we'll be balanced again and be back. I suppose for that, we've had a lot of fun. We've had, like I said, we've been up to 5 pubs and dine again. We've been involved in the Manchester scene, I suppose, but in a very quiet way until the other breweries started opening and until the other tap rooms started opening. So, okay, if this is not being impolite, the kick up the backside to us was brilliant. We got a little complacent. Suddenly you've got new competition coming in and you're like, we can't ride on our laurels here.
We need to make sure we step up our game too.
We stepped up our game. We learned what other people were doing. We're taking in all the time. And there is a lot of people I'm working with, a lot of people in this industry are 20 years younger than me now. And that's the, Jesus, your ideas are brilliant. Come on, we'll have a go at that, or we'll have a go at this. So
so clearly the outside industry has really influenced what you guys have done. So how have you seen the outside industry change as well in parallel to Marble?
I suppose, how has it changed? It's definitely more widespread. There's a lot more investment and money in it, which makes me nervous.
Do you want to tell me a little about why that makes you nervous?
Well, it makes me, like, it has a good and a bad side. So if you think Marble could never have done something like Brewdog, right? Because we just physically couldn't appeal to that many people, and I wouldn't have the nerve to go do that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's a danger of it devaluing something because of the amount of comment that Brewdog isn't seen particularly favourably now. And I know from my point of view, you know, somebody that comes and says there was never good beer in Britain before 2007, and I'm like, we've been operating from 1997, don't do it to me. But, so I can see the good sign of that investment and stuff and all, in that more and more people are drinking. And if you want beer to survive, that is more independent, whether it's craft, traditional cask, you've got to bring people into it. So one of the things that makes me very proud at the Arch is that I can take somebody who comes in and says, pint of Carling please, and we can have them on chocolate or stout just by talking, you know, and saying, would you try? Because if people have never tasted stuff before, they're not going to know whether they like it or not until it's explained.
Of course,
through
they
and
might be nervous
it.
to pay a $5 for something they've never had. But if you've got welcoming staff who can explain how it's made and bring people in, like you said, it makes a huge difference.
So there's that sort of thing. I tend to think of us as very small scale, very tiny. I find there are definitely people who will step into, say, supermarket level, or they will step into export, where the retailer is controlling what you're making. It's not my ball game, but it's definitely out there now. So we've seen that. I've definitely seen a lot wider diversity of people coming in, which I love. And I think, again, for pubs to succeed, stop complaining about the crap ones that are closing. Big up the good ones where you feel comfortable. Tell people to go there. And little micro units opening, so little micro bars opening, and, you know, in a little area. That's your local has just transferred to become something else. So I've seen that. What else have I seen over time? Beer styles have definitely widened out.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, rather than people complaining about a style they don't like,
Find them something they do
Find
like.
something you do like and talk positively about what you like. So there are styles that I'm not comfortable with, and that's purely my background. Has a certain level of bitterness that I like in it, but I recognise that's me.
Yeah.
It's not the people brewing.
Yeah, that was one of my questions for you, actually. What's your favorite beer that you brew here at Marble?
I don't have one.
You don't have too many options.
Because again, I'm just, if I'm in the mood for this, I will have this. So I've been drinking keg for quite a while. It has got colder. I went into the pub the other night, came home from working here at head office, and said Lagonda was on. And I said, I've not had cask for ages. Can I have a pint of Lagonda, please?
Yeah, so it's
and
just
it was
what you...
heaven.
Yeah.
You know, it was in superb form. It was just beautiful. And that to me is right. I've enjoyed that one beer that I can remember the event, the moment.
Yep.
And I think there's something. It's like somebody that ran a restaurant. Would you say, what's your favourite meal you cook in here? You would say, are you proud of your food?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm proud of, what we do and the different beer styles we do.
That's a very good point. Thanks for pushing back on me on that one, because I can never say what my favorite style is either. I'm like, it's, maybe this time of year it's this one, or this time of year it's that one, or whatever you're in the mood for.
Yeah.
So you are incredibly proud of your team. Something for me that I notice right away is when you go to look at the Marble website, not only do you talk about who's on your team now, but who's been on your team in the past. So to me, it seems quite clear that you seem to be really proud of all the brewers and members of staff that have started here and gone on elsewhere, whether it's to Thornbridge or Cloudwater or to Buxton, just to name a few. So my question was, do you see Marble as sort of an incubator for the industry, and how important is creating this sense of community between different breweries and bits of the industry?
I think we can't do anything but be an incubator because our expansion is so small. So if you come in here and learn something and go on somewhere else, or if you come in here and get to the top of where you can be, or if you come in here and find it not to your liking, it doesn't mean we haven't given you skills or whatever. I am very proud that people have gone on to other places. And again, I think that because it's pub-based, it's alcohol-based, it's everybody talking, you should complement, not compete. Why would I compete with other pubs or breweries when there's a much bigger macro industry out there that I can... So within that, there are rows to be had, and there are things people do and say that are totally dreadful and they need taken down for. But for most of the time, it's about saying, look, even if it's just we're here, do you know there's another pub around the corner doing this, or go and try that, or... Right, nice story. We have a friend who brews Cigar City. Wayne's the head brewer. So Wayne loves Manchester Bitter. So when Wayne has people coming to Manchester or England, he will say to them, look, if you're in the Marble, get a pint of Manchester Bitter. So in the past 3 weeks, I've talked to young American men who have come from Manchester Bitter.
Specifically
now,
sent.
that's my community going on, you know, and they've given me the name. If you're in... One of them's from Colorado.
Okay.
If you're in Colorado, go to this place
Go
and
check
stuff.
out this
It
brewery.
all works
Right.
round and about.
And my initial thought was you sort of micro Manchester community, but you've just shown that you're connected to folks around the world through beer as well.
Well, again, I wanted advice on a particular issue the other day that had come up for us, and I talked to women in England, but I also was able to reach out to Devon from Seventh Son, Valerie from Green Flash,
in San Diego,
and Christy, who we know through civil and stuff, and say to them, look, this is an American issue, what do you think on this particular... I just love that.
Yeah, and it seems to me as well, I was sort of scrolling through your Twitter as I was preparing for this, and not only are you sharing what's happening in the local community here, look at what this brewery is putting on, look at this event, but you're also always offering support, being, saying, if anyone's having this issue, we've been here for 20 years, do you want to talk? So why is that something that's important to you? Is that something you felt you didn't have maybe when you were starting up, someone else to talk to, or just a bit of advice?
I think it's natural to help. So I do think it's just natural in my thing. I think, again, it's pub background. And for me, no, I think it was something taught to me. So when we were at the Arch, if there was trouble at what was the beer house is now the Angel down the road, there'd have been a phone call. We've got these lads in, make sure, they're a bit over the edge, make sure if they come into you, you're watching. There was a network of people who did. And I think for us, there were 5 free houses in Manchester, so I'm going to get this wrong now. There was the Queen's at the top of Red Bank, there was us, there was the Beer House, there was the Crescent, and there was the Kingsdown in Salford. And that was a sort of there were only 5 of you, so it wasn't my network. I came in late to that and was seen as a bit of an incomer. But Vansom people worked with all those people. So I think, if anything, it's come from that you feel it's your area, you're part of it.
Yep.
And then for the brewery, so many people have helped us out over the years, you know. And even something as simple, like we were late to kegging, lots of people give us advice on kegging and stuff, so you just spread it back through.
Yeah, you only want to pay it forward, what you've learned as well.
Yeah.
Another thing community-wise that I thought was interesting is you've got an even tinier micro-community within the business here. Your son works here as head brewer, your husband is involved as well. So what's that like, having your family here in your business as well?
I think they would argue and say it's our business.
That's fair enough, sorry. Let's correct that.
That's absolutely fine. It's about, there are a couple of things in that. Again, the youngest has his own brewery with his father's side of what was our original business and things. I'm incredibly proud that I have two sons that have come into this industry. I am incredibly proud that they know more than I will ever know about brewing beer, and that they've taken it, that traditional level that I was at, they walked on from that and have moved into modern styles of brewing and stuff. For both of them, we did it with both, that they, instead of gap year funniness or whatever, they went and worked at other people's breweries, so they saw good sides of other people's breweries. And that ranged from traditional with Joe at Phoenix Brewery and then moving on to Buxton and Magic Rock. Dan did a stint in Magic Rock, he also went down and did a stint at Burning Sky and stuff. So they went out and talked to other people. They've brought new knowledge back in.
Back home as well, so it is this sharing of ideas. And
I'm not saying it's always the easiest in the world. We all rile and talk and discuss to each other, but
at least you've got that shared common passion and a shared language as well.
And as I want to step back a little, so Joe will step in a little more.
Okay.
We also have an incredibly strong, like we have someone in head office whose daughter came in at 15, legally was allowed to leave school, but came in and is apprentice chef, going through her qualifications ABC now.
Wow.
So
lots of ways to
we've
bring
got
in
lots
family.
of ways where people know each other and things,
Does that make it any harder to take a break and be able to turn off from, you know, the business, the brewery, the pubs that you manage, knowing that your family's all part of it as well? When you go home, the business is all still there since you all share it.
I think the funny one is, like, when you go away, so you go away and everybody goes for a drink or a meal and you're immediately discussing, and that's the big one that I find very hard to, it's hard to relax elsewhere without thinking, that's a good idea, or God, those staff are good, how are they doing that? Or they presented a beer like this or a wine like this or whatever. So that size of socialising can be quite strange.
Challenging sometimes, do you find that a positive, oh, we've taken away ideas, or you're like, oh, why can't I just turn off and just enjoy this beer?
It can be both. It depends. And there are times when you need to. We take breaks and go away a lot. And we do things like family trips to the theatre and stuff, like maybe only once a year, but it's like, right, we're going out tonight.
What do you do outside of beer? Do you have hobbies that kind of help?
We sleep. We
Exactly.
We have movies and theatre and stuff. We've got, and just so nice things that have happened recently. Again, Joe got a little dog. It spends the days with us in the office and stuff. One of our regulars has just had a baby that is in the evening in the pub and stuff. So there's nice sort of more family things going on. Are we healthy? Not particularly. We keep saying we should be and then doing nothing about it. So.
It's all right. It's tough this time of year. It gets dark out at 4 o'clock. You're like, when do I go exercise? There's no time for it. So it sounds like you're always working, or at least always on. What bit about your job do you love the most?
The freedom. It's the freedom. I very seriously doubt I would get up and go to a job every day now and turn up at a time somebody dictated and go home at a time somebody dictated. So I like that, but I also think that's because I know how difficult it would be to get me to go back into a routine where someone else was constantly having that expectation of my. What else do I like? I like our size. I like it so small. So one of the things we've done recently, we have had, Jan's been designing for us for years. With the pump clips, we did something very plain, very, to sort of counteract all the trains and the witches and all that sort of stuff with cask beer. We went for this very plain graphic.
Here's what it is.
Here's boom. And the beer will speak for itself. It says pint on it. You drink it, tell me if you like it. But within that, for your designer, that can become a little bit
limiting.
And then when JK came in, we started playing with ranges and said, like, it was so funny. So this tickled me, it really amused me. Metal is not particularly cool. you know, and in the hype world, and we were like, yeah, JK was like, can I do a metal series? And we were, of course you can. Jan, what can you design to do that?
Yep.
Like it's a little set of things that I just thought people were like, you're out of your heads. How are you going to carry that with all this very modernistic design? It was, of course we'll carry it. The beer will be good. The design's lovely.
Yeah, and you're supporting people to be their most creative and fully express themselves in a small bit of the business.
So now we've done, so as well as that, we've gone back to, it's the op art stuff from the 60s for this range, for the sours, the kettle sours. We've taken some rain scenes from Manchester, which are the collab range for this year. What are the other ones we've done? Joe was heavily involved with the Hot Forward series. Him and Jan have worked on the designs for it. Now, I can empathise if you've got a bottle shop, because someone I know has one was like, Jan, it's really hard to display it all at the moment.
Your beers in one place.
We only ever use 2 fonts, so there should be writing that will link it and a small logo that will link it. But it has been fun to be small enough to play and not to have, we don't have to sell, you know, mega lots of it for somebody to get that and look at that design and think, oh, that's nice, and will that stay or will that go?
Yeah. And I know being a small brewery had been important to you. It's something that's mentioned a lot on the website, even on your Twitter. It's not your brewery size, it's what you do with it that counts. But I've heard some mentions of an expansion just in our conversation. So what's happening next?
It's not so much about, right, well, I'm going to take more of a back seat, which means Joe will come in more. So there will be, we're not going to go over duty limit in the next couple of years, you know, that's my
so you've
thing.
Got a set
I'm
volume
comfortable where we're at.
Yep, so a set volume of beer you're going to be producing.
But within that, Joe's come in, we're purchasing new kit, and we have new premises as well. Now we're going to 25 hectares. I think we're only going up about 2.5 barrels. So I think it's, we're going from 12.5 barrels to 15. We know that pint and Manchester are popular. We know the brewers like to play with other beers as well, so we're going to buy some double-sized tanks so we can double brew for pint and Manchester and things. I think it's not so much expanding in terms of how much, it's more expanding in terms of being able to get into more modern brewing and things, And for us, the railway arches that we're brewing in are it's too old, it's gone now. The expansion in the area, the building in the area, we worked for 18 months with the people who have, there's about 10,000 new homes being built around there.
Wow.
We worked for 18 months with them trying to find us premises, and nothing came up, so we took it on our own thing and have found a unit out in Salford behind Media City that we're hopefully going to be in and brewing from March in.
It's exciting. Okay. Well, that feeds into the next question, which is, we started by looking back 20 years. Maybe 20 years in the future is a little too hard to predict.
Not too much for me.
Could you say a year from now, 5 years from now, if you want to play with it 20 years from now, what might Marble look like? What would you like to be doing in the future?
Well, we have so we're going to move the brewery. We're working in Stockport for something that is small, exciting for us, bar with some food and stuff, which will happen as the brewery happens. And then I think for me, it will go back to the arch. This is how Kerry wants a new kitchen, so executive chef is like, Jan, we've lasted so long. So a bit like Joe with the brewery.
I've waited patiently enough, now it's my turn.
Now it's my turn. So it'll be the Marble Arch after that. So it's funny, like we've always taken the Marble Arch is listed. So it's grade 2 listed.
It's this beautiful old Victorian pub. Really special place. But
we don't want to go down a funding thing where people tell us what we have to do. It's not a National Trust property, it's a working pub. So for us, but we know there's stuff needs done on it now. So the next stage after that, for me, will be to get the Marble Arch made as perfect as a working pub can be. If we can afford to do it, we have to think about how we do that and stuff. But that's my goal in all of this. So my nice story in all of this is, I can remember the pub was taking, $2,000 a week or whatever. And I can remember James, who was head brewer then, saying, so this will be 10 years ago, saying, Jan, there'll be a week and we'll hit 10 grand. And we did it, and I remember the joy of just going, we bloody did that, you know. So that's the bit, is to keep now where we are noted for what we are and what we do. It's to keep it profitable and to put money back into the arch to make it as beautiful as ever. So
this might have just been the answer that you gave me, but I was going to ask, what accomplishment are you most proud of?
Okay, it all sounds terribly gushy and terribly positive. I'm very proud of owning the Marble Arch. I'm very proud of owning the brewery and making it work and us being in our little niche, and I am incredibly proud of my children.
Oh, lovely. And my last question for you as we wrap up is, what do you enjoy most about being a part of the beer industry?
Alcohol? The answer is beer.
Yeah.
Okay. It's beer and people. It always has to be beer and people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've met some fantastic people. I've drunk some fantastic products. So
Yeah, well, cheers to many more of both.
Cheers.
It's been lovely to meet you, Jan. That's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you again, Jan, for hosting us and for sitting down to chat with me. On the next episode, the first live recording of Beer with Nat, you'll hear from Julie O'Grady, the head of sales, marketing, and events for Liverpool's Neptune Brewery. She's also the founder of Ladies That Beer, a group dedicated to engaging, educating, and empowering women who love beer. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss an episode. You can also keep up to date with past guests by signing up for my bi-weekly email newsletter. Head on over to beerwithnat.com/contact to sign up. Thanks, and chat soon.